4. Department of State. A. Arms Control and International Security. Disbanded. This subdivision is far too foreign-oriented for a neutral nation. The study of other nations' actions can be performed by the GEP. Internal security will be handled by the Populus militia. B. Economic, Energy, and Business Affairs. Disbanded. This department encourages and solicits merchandising, which only serves to addict others to the elite manufacturers' practice of waste and consumption. A self-sufficient neutral nation does not need this peddling within its own borders, let alone within exterior foreign nations, especially at the taxpayer's expense, to the benefit of only large private corporations. C. Democracy and Global Affairs. Disbanded. The individualistic neutral nation cultivates mind, body, and spirit to perfection in each of its individuals so that the nation as a whole evolves to perfection. It does not enforce its ways upon any other, but leads by example so that others beholding it can be inspired by its actions and choose for themselves whether or not to adopt its methods. To enforce one's own system upon others is force, regardless of one's good intent or not. To quote President Bush, "The survival of liberty in our land increasingly depends on the success of liberty in other lands. The best hope for peace in our world is the expansion of freedom in all the world." This is a phrase to justify entering another's nation and applying one's own will to another's way of life for their own good. Arrogantly asserting that one knows what is best for humanity, or to feign kindness so as to set up a new nation of consumption and waste to the profit of the few. Similar nonsense is the phrase, "freedom isn't free," for which some agency needs to be started with the people's taxpayer dollars to inform every fish in the sea, every bird in the sky, and every other animal free from their birth that they have been believing in error that they are free for the last hundreds of millions of years. It is comical how only the supposed smartest animals, the humans, are deceived into such idiocy. D. Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs. Disbanded. All that this department does is performed much better by the GEP with the people as priority. The individualistic society has no interest in soliciting the American image outside of its own borders, for it has no desire in propaganda of any type. E. 1. Management. 2. Political Affairs. Assimilated into the HVR operations, these two departments are refined and thinned. The individualistic United States maintains strict neutrality, and its presence in foreign nations shall be lessened and its activities within them stopped. In the future, when full neutrality is realized, these departments may be disbanded at the discretion of the populace. 5. Department of Homeland Security, DHS. A. Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. Disbanded. This ridiculous division has unchecked power and authority, encourages construction in disaster-prone areas. It is an outlet for populist money to be dumped into unverifiable claims, a mockery of order in even the most primitive of eras. B. Computer Emergency Readiness Team. Assimilated. This division becomes fully populace-owned. There will be no public-private partnerships. C. Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. Assimilated into the HVR. D. Management Undersecretary. Assimilated into general functions of the PHMC. E. Operation Coordination Office. Assimilated into the HVR. The U.S. monitoring of this division is conducted by GEP and enforced by the HVR. F. Policy Office. Assimilated into the general operation of HVR. G. Preparedness Directorate. Assimilated, refined as general procedures of the HVR. H. Science and Technology Directorate. Assimilated into the GEP. I. Transportation Security Administration. Assimilated into the general operations of the HVR. J. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Assimilated into the general functions of the HVR. See Immigration on page 73. K. U.S. Coast Guard. Assimilated into the general operations of the HVR. L. U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Assimilated into the HVR as a special populist militia unit. Its present size and training doubled. M. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Assimilated into the GEP. N. U.S. Secret Service. Assimilated into the HVR. O. Domestic Nuclear Detection Office. Maintained. 6. Department of the Treasury. A. Bureau of Public Debt. Disbanded. This is the division that keeps America in debt, as its name asserts. Quote, borrowing money to run the federal government, end quote, obviously means that the government is too big. Some estimate that this department borrows over $5 trillion per year and hands the interest over to the American people to pay. The interest is over $750 million per day. Thus, the people pay for expenses of government actions beyond their vote and control, which benefit only the few. B. Internal Revenue Service, IRS. Disbanded. The IRS is not an agency of the federal government. None of its employees are employees of the federal government. They are employees of a private corporation called the IRS, run by the Secretary of the Treasury of Puerto Rico. And that is exactly how it is listed in the U.S. Code and Federal Regulations, Titles 5, 26, and 27. The IRS, a private entity, can legally seize assets without obtaining judgment in court and cannot be sued. An invulnerable, private entity which does not obey the people is not an element of a just society. C. Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. Disbanded. These two topics shouldn't even be in the same office of control, unless one is laundering money through Clearstream International to Bahrain International Bank, owned by Osama bin Laden. There are already too many intelligence agencies. The GEP shall be the only one, and it shall report to the people, not to the government. The list of suspect subdivisions in this department is as follows. The Office of Terrorist Financing and Financial Crimes. Yes, they probably do finance these things with the American taxpayer's dollar. 2. The Office of Intelligence and Analysis. 3. The Office of Foreign Assets Control. Control is the key word here. 4. Financial Crime Enforcement Network. Surely, they conduct many, making Enron and WorldCom look like child's play. 5. The Treasury Executive Office for Asset Forfeiture. These are merely thieves with law on their side. 6. IRS Criminal Investigation. It is frightening how this department needs not the judgment of the courts. Its existence is unconstitutional, as are its actions. See the IRS above. D. Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau. Assimilated into the general tax collecting operations of the HVR. E. Financial Management Service, FMS. Assimilated, quote, conducts services for the federal government, end quote. It will be downsized along with the government and report directly to the people, as the government is not an entity to have anything to answer to. F. 1. Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. 2. Office of Thrift Supervision. Assimilated. There are no banks to monitor in the individualistic society. These offices are merged into the GEP and will only monitor the populous funds. All other activities, especially in foreign nations, are ceased. This less complex arrangement allows the departments to be significantly downsized. G. 1. U.S. Mint. 2. Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Maintained within the HVR. 7. Department of Veterans Affairs. A. 1. Veterans Benefits Administration. 2. Veterans Health Administration. Assimilated into the HVR. All current recipients are grandfathered into their current plans. However, it is closed to any new beneficiaries as all U.S. citizens become members of the Populus militia, therefore are veterans and are covered under the Populus health system. With a budget of over $69 billion, the VA lags and delays veteran claims, ignoring veterans who had their life on the line. It often loses and falsifies data and cannot be held accountable. The Individualist Society will recognize all grandfathered veterans with free health care for each veteran, holding them exempt from the common health tax. This is the least they deserve for being used by spineless corporations and banks who sent them to fight their unnecessary battles of greed. With the death of the last recipient, these departments will be disbanded. B. National Cemetery Administration. Maintained in the HVR in honor and respect of those who fought for freedom. Even if some were deceived and fought for corporate interests, their courage and sacrifice will be remembered. C. Other departments assimilated. A. The FDIC. Disbanded. The Federal Department Insurance Corporation is an organization composed of shells within shells which practices fraud, inside trading, and issuing bank charters to money launderers. Its executives are nearly all working for underworld forces. Any institution with significant complexity is a web for redundancy and refraction of light. Thus, It is darkness granting the ability to work concealed within it. Furthermore, it insures the money of the private banks with the public funds of the taxpayers, or the hollow funds printed by the Federal Reserve. B. The Federal Reserve. Disbanded. Operating unconstitutionally, the Federal Reserve is a synthesis of private and government control, an intimacy which should never be. The government is the people. There should be no involvement of the people's funds in any private affair to any degree. The Fed controls the people's currency and operates in extreme secrecy, keeping the public in the dark, who, constitutionally, are the only ones who should be controlling currency in the first place. Thus there is great private control of the funds and credit of the people, and all of the rules, fractional reserve, usury, debt collectors, reporting agencies, bankruptcy laws, debt repayment laws, are all in their favor. They can issue credits based on nothing to banks, which can then lend out 9 times the amount. Thus the banks, the private few, control the people, the masses, the government, by controlling the currency, forcing them into slavery, claiming ownership over all facilities, all land, and all property. They control the currency by buying and selling bonds, thereby inserting or removing funds into the system at will. This power to take money in and out of circulation was used to purposely cause the Great Depression, amongst other suspected diabolical acts. The individualist shall inform the people of this blatant thievery and deception, and teach them that the only validity to the Fed dollar or to any ownership claimed by a bank is as far as one believes it to be true, and the degree to which the authorities obey the banks instead of the people. Thus the authorities and the people must be one and the same. D. HVR Immediate Reforms. 1. Social Security Insurance. Social Security is nothing but a massive pyramid scheme paying its beneficiaries directly from the Social Security insurance contributors, the people, not from the accrued interest of a trust fund, as some believe. The trust fund is filed with U.S. Treasury debt securities, debt obligations taken by the government whose interest is paid by the taxpayers, who are supposed to be accruing interest, not paying it. Thus, the people are paying the people with an unnecessary middleman, siphoning off of their funds. This ambiguous debt covers up what these supposed representatives actually do with the taxpayers' money. Much of the money is indeed invested and substantial interest received, but it is by government officials and their private interests, not the common man. For selfish intentions, the government has made itself appear as an entity more responsible than those it is supposed to represent, the caretaker of the people and their money while it gets fat from the interest. It is simply another system of dependence, where the people have allowed their responsibility to be handed over to another. A deliberate deception to make people accept the government, constantly dipping into their pockets in hopes of receiving something in return. Unfortunately, most people die before getting back just what they put into it, let alone making a profit. A blatant thievery in the guise of benevolence. Being that all people are paying the people, thus exchanging money for no reason but to the benefit of a middleman, they shall stop exchanging at all. In the individualistic society, the people are responsible for their own future as it is their right and duty. None of their money is taken from them, assuming them to be incompetent and unable to plan their own financial strategy. The people shall decide what they want to do with their own money and invest it, or not, in any way they choose. If they make bad decisions and have no money in the future, they will have the individualist knowledge of self-sustenance and the populous laborhoods to fall back on. If they are crippled and abandoned by family, the laborhoods have light tasks and open arms for them. In the individualistic society, the old are the wisest, unlike today where the lies and withholding of knowledge progressively stupefies the public with age so that the toddlers are now the wisest. The individualist elder will not have made foolish mistakes regarding his or her own private future. The wisest individualist will need no money. The individualistic society abolishes SSI and pays those who paid into it all of their money back and distributes the remainder, if any, equally.